Welcome to the Second Win Boxing Media. I'm your host, Rashid Hammond, and alongside...
It's your boy, Caesar Fantastic.
Well, today we're going to do a topic about the top 10 greatest analysts of all, boxing analysts of all times. We're doing two lists. We're doing one based upon the top 10 of all times and one based upon the top 5 of today. And this list... For disclaimer, immediately, these are our personal opinions. This is not the holy grail of boxing analysts. These are the people that we think are our best pound for pound greatest analysts of all times. I'm going to start off with my top 10 lists. And Sean's going to give his top 10 lists. And then we're going to later do the top 5. My top 10 list is, I'm going to start with number 1, Sugar Ray Leonard. Sugar Ray Leonard is my number 1 greatest boxing analyst of all times. Number 2, Roy Jones and George Foreman. I know you're like, how could you put 2 and 1 on the same list? Personally, Roy Jones and George Foreman used to alternate that role. And when you had them on HBO, you had 2 of the greatest in terms of breaking down boxers, strategies, etc. It's like when George Foreman wasn't on there, Roy Jones was on there, and it was like they never missed a beat. Because it was always, only time I think Roy Jones would be having a fight and then George would come on. But we still got boxing, great IQ and great information from both of those fighters. My number 3 is Andre Ward. And Andre Ward is a current. But Andre Ward, in my opinion, takes boxing to another height of today. And you can hear the experience and the expertise of how he analyzes the sport. It's like when I listen to Andre Ward speaks, I literally feel like going to go grab a pen and paper and taking notes of the stuff that he says on it. That's how great of an analyst he is. My number 4 is the legendary Emanuel Stewart. Emanuel Stewart goes deep waters with what he analyzes as well. He breaks down the sport like no other, in my opinion, in terms of from a trainer's perspective. Now, not from a fighter's perspective. I hear what a trainer has to offer to the game, and he does an ordinary job. And Emanuel Stewart been around so long with the sport that he knows the history of the fighters. What made it that much special, in my opinion. My number 5 is Lennox Lewis. Lennox Lewis goes deep beyond as well, and Lennox Lewis still doing his thing of today. It's just the way the man breaks the sport down, in my opinion. It's just like you can hear the experience similar to George Foreman, as well as Roy Jones. It's similar styles in terms of how they use their experiences as fighters to analyze the sport. My number 6 is Bobby Chaz. Bobby Chaz, Showtime, same way, similar to Lennox Lewis and Roy Jones and all the other fighters that's above him. Above him in my list. Bobby Chaz used to go deep waters as well and analyze the sport like no other. And I had nothing but respect for him. He was on Showtime, but he used to do an ordinary job. And he analyzed the sport as great. My number 7 is Sean O'Grady. Tuesday night fights. Man, I used to watch those fights every Tuesday. And that man used to analyze those up-and-coming fighters that wasn't quite world champions yet, but he had strategies to take for take before the fights was like no other. And this was before those guys, he had to analyze probably for 1 or 2 fights. Not like how the guys above the list had probably 20 fights to break down someone. This guy had to break down a guy within probably 15, 16 fights of fighting guys that wasn't even on the level of their competition, but on the level like no other. But he had great analytical skills when it came to that. He knew the tales of the tapes to give these guys and break it down. My number 9 is the legendary Al Bernstein. And you wonder, like, this guy's a Hall of Famer. Why didn't you put him at the top of the list? The reason why, my opinion, that Al Bernstein didn't make the top of the list is just because he wasn't a fighter. That's just the way us fighters always rank people most times. The only reason why I didn't put him at the top was because he didn't know as a fighter, but he was a great analyst. He knew boxing. He knew how to analyze fighters. He could break fighters down. The only reason why he didn't make the top of the list was because he was not a fighter. And my last but not least, of my opinion, who was a fighter and trainer, Teddy Atlas. I think he was a great analyst. He just had the emotions of the sport. So he gravitated to you and he could tell you how he could motivate. He even motivated, as just an analyst, he motivated the crowd. He motivated the listeners. So that's my top 10 of all times. Of course, Howard Cosell. Reason why he didn't make the list, because he was one of me and Sean agreed upon, saying this guy was like the ultimate communicator. But he was more than boxing. So we didn't put him to the list. That's the only reason why he didn't make the list. Howard Cosell was...
Him and Marv Albert.
Exactly. They were
both.
It's another level. So we definitely didn't put them in our list. Sean, I want to hear your list as well, man. It's your turn, brother.
All right. I'm going to start from 10 and work my way up.
Okay.
So I'm not going to go into detail on the ones that I agree with you on the reasons why they're on the list, so we won't be too repetitive.
I understand.
Or whatever, but the beginning of my list starts with people who taught me certain aspects of boxing.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So, and what's crazy is I didn't even realize how when you said that Bernstein was low on your list because he didn't box, then I happened to look at my list and was like, wow, everybody at the top of my list basically was boxing.
That's
I'm like, yo, I didn't even think that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's just
it's natural.
Head, you know? So at number 10, I got Harold Letterman.
Okay.
Because he taught me the judging aspect.
I understand.
You know what I mean? So I really learned how to judge a fight.
Okay.
Watching Harold Letterman. So so now I think of when I'm judging fights now, I'm like, dang.
Right. So
you know, now, Julie Letterman's doing judging.
Right. Yeah.
It's crazy. So got Harold Letterman at
I understand.
10. My number 9 is Teddy Atlas because of his breakdowns with his guy he used to fake beat up every you know, Teddy would come in like, no, what he needs to do is he needs to know, and then pow, pow.
Right.
Oh man, you know, it's just something about nostalgia, I guess, you know. And number 8, Al Bernstein.
Okay.
Because his breakdowns before the fights, his well, what this guy needs to do in order to win the fight, and then going to what this guy needs to do to win the fight, and I find myself still doing that to this day. Okay, you know what I mean? Even with the fights that just passed with Charlo, I wrote down before the fight, Charlo needs to stick to the jab. This is what Charlo needs. This is what Castaño needs to get Charlo on the ropes. And it's just crazy. That's what Al Bernstein taught.
Yeah, you're right.
And then Lennox is my number 7.
Okay.
Mainly because he's a pugilist specialist. Oh my goodness, the sweet science, the things that he said, it was just like, oh my God, he made it. He made convincing statements. He made boxing key catchphrases. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was just like
most definitely.
Yeah. So Lennox, number 7. Number 6 is Sean O'Grady.
Okay.
Mainly because he shares my name. And so I used to tell people I was Irish. It was like the Black Irish.
Okay.
Because I spell my name the same way as him.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, that was my man growing up. I remember watching Tuesday night fights with my grandfather.
Okay.
And we used to bet on every fight.
Okay.
And I was like, we'd bet like $1.
Okay.
Some fights, I'm like, I don't know who's gonna win. And I go bet my grandfather, then I go bet my father will never get.
Okay.
It was just something I was young, stupid. But number 5 for me is Andre Ward for the same reasons you said, because his knowledge of boxing is just up there, and he was great at it when he did it, and he's great as an analyst. He's a great guy, Number 4 is Roy, for basically the same reasons as Ward.
Right.
Roy really knew how to break down fighters, and he had a personality that was unmatched. Like, as far as he had that personality.
Right.
Number 3, same reasons as them. I guess they're all fast punchers. I don't know. Sugar Ray's my number 3.
Okay.
So he was the same way, just a little earlier. You know what I mean? He had that star quality.
I got you.
You know what I mean? He
did.
He was Sugar Ray.
Right.
You know what I mean? I remember growing up watching Sugar Ray, and then when he transitioned into broadcasting, it was just like, wow, that's Sugar Ray.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So he just had that.
Yeah, the quality.
Yeah, star quality. Number 2 is Emmanuel Stewart, basically for the same reason you said, the training aspect.
Exactly.
He really knew how to break down boxing.
Yes.
He really knew like the technical aspect.
Exactly.
Godfather of Detroit boxing.
Most hands down.
And my number 1 is George.
Okay.
Because George, his transition into boxing analyst, like being the commentator, being the analyst, was night and day.
Right.
George was this militant boxer who took no punch. He just
right.
And then when he got behind that camera, that smile. Yes. George would not stop smiling, and it was just like, George, stop smiling, love somebody again,
exactly. Right.
And and to transition from that to the smile, and then become George Foreman that we love today,
right?
With the Foreman grills and all the advertisement, and just how big he became after was just like, man, he's the man. You know what I mean? And then to have that run, and to have all them kids and name him George.
That's just
you're God to you.
Exactly.
So yeah, but that's my top 10.
Man, Sean, your list was amazing, brother. That list, and I forgot about George's transition from being the bad guy to becoming like America's most loved man of all.
George was loved more than the Cowboys.
Yes, he did. That's facts, man. That's a fact, man. Well, now we're going to move on to the top 5 lists of today. Who's the top 5 analysts of today? And my number, I'm going to do what Sean did. I'm going to start from the bottom, man. I'm going to say Brian Custer. Man, this guy came out of nowhere, man. Just popped up out of nowhere. And every time I listen to him speak, man, it's like I've known him forever.
Yeah, like butter.
Yeah, man.
Like butter, baby.
It's like I've known this guy forever, man. And it's just like he and everybody that's a fighter, they gravitates to this man. Like it's like no other, man. I don't care who, especially when he do interviews. It's like I watched him get in the ring and spar some guy. He sparred Crawford. Was it Spence? Spence. I think it was Spence. He sparred Spence. And you got to respect the analyst to do such that's not a real fighter, man. So he and when you watch him, like I watched his podcast and it was like no other, man. Like he just, it's just the way he does it, man, and I have nothing but respect for him, man. My number 4 is Paulie. I always mess Paulie's last name up. Margianji, you know, and Paulie, man, breaks down the fight. He's reminds me of up to today's, similar to Roy Jones was, and how he breaks down the fighter and what the fighter can do to win or what he didn't do to win. And Paulie was doing this as he was a fighter himself, similar to Roy.
Yeah, he was still fighting.
He still was fighting similar to Roy. So, you know, I have nothing but respect for Paulie as an analyst as well. My number 3 is Sean Porter. Come on, man. Sean Porter. I've been watching a couple of Sean Porter's commentary lately, right? And we sit here and watch Sean Porter's podcast. And Sean Porter is definitely, like, you know, he's a well-respected fighter for one, because he fought every style out there. So as you can tell that he fought every style, that has been the way he breaks down the fight. It's just similar to Roy Jones, George Foreman, Andre Ward. He's definitely bringing the fight, that knowledge and expertise on that same level. And my number 2, because even though he's an old fighter of back in the 90s, Lennox Lewis, because he's still up to date. Lennox Lewis breaks down the fight like no other, like he's done make the top 10 of all times. He's definitely has to make the top 10 of today in this time frame, because Lennox Lewis is on national television still, fighting on Fox PBC. Analyzing on Fox PBC. And he's breaking down the fights from expertise of 30, 40 years of boxing. He's bringing that. Now, my number 1. I have to give it to this brother, man. It's like this guy been around the game for 100 years, but he's only been around for like 20, 30 years. And he's probably about 30-something years old. But it seems like he's been involved in this sport forever. And my number 1 pick is Andre Ward. Of today, I have not seen no one break down a fight game like Andre Ward does in this time frame. It's like I said in the beginning when I rated the top 10, I literally want to go grab a pen and paper as this man speaks and write down notes. Take notes and listen to how he breaks down these young fighters of today and gives them... They don't know they have a professor at hand. Now, Andre Ward is like a professor when he speaks about the sport of boxing. So that's why I put Andre Ward at the top of the list, because he goes deep water and he doesn't say what they want to hear. He says what's needed to be heard. He gives these boxing straight up uncut truth. He don't care if he known you for 20 years. If you're doing something wrong, he's going to break it down to you. And he knows how to push it. He knows how to push the teaching envelope to the youngins. So my top 1 is Andre Ward. Salute to you, brother. Keep doing what you're doing, man. Okay, Sean, you can give your top 5, brother.
Okay, well, mine same names as yours, but just different orders.
Okay.
You know, my number 5 is Custer.
Okay.
Mainly because he's brand, like he's not as, he hasn't been in it as long as some of the other ones as far as being up there.
Right.
Know? And I love his interview style.
Okay.
So it's just his interview style and just him being out front now, you know, and doing the pre-fight face-off thing.
Okay, the press conference, yeah.
And just how we do it, you know, he's just professionals, you know, and I rock with it.
Right.
My number 4 is going to be Lennox because of longevity.
Right.
And the fact that he's still doing it and still doing it on a high level.
Right.
You know what I mean? Number 3 is going to be Paulie.
Okay.
Because something about the way Paulie break down fights.
He do.
It's just something about the way he do it. And then I don't know if it's the New York draw,
right?
Or whatever.
He does.
But it's crazy is that it seemed like all the fast punchers break down fights good.
That's true statement.
You don't get Amir Khan and Zab Judah and see what they can do.
Exactly.
But it's something about Paulie, man, and he's just great at what he do, you know.
Yep.
Then Porter, the number 2. And that's because he breaks down fights. He breaks down fights and fighters just as well, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then his transition to media, you know, to go from he does commentating for multiple outlets and a podcast, and the podcast is amazing.
It's nice, man. I love it.
It's an amazing podcast, and I'm like, oh my God, you know, I won. Gonna get something like
yeah, exactly. I feel you, man. It's coming, man.
You know it.
Yes, indeed.
But then, you know, number 1 is, like you said, Ward, man.
Ward, man.
Like I said earlier, the greatness in the ring to retire undefeated.
Right.
He's undefeated in commentating as well.
Yeah, man, that's facts, man.
That dude he's amazing at what he does, and just his knowledge of the sport just shows. You know, hands down. So
yeah, man, your list was similar, man. It's just about 2 or 3 off, but for mine it is different. But man, both of them was on point though, man. Because the beautiful thing about this episode here is these are our personal opinions. Mm-hmm. So, in that being said, please leave at the bottom of the list of the thing below in the copy. Make sure you say in the comment section. Make sure you leave your top 10 of all times and your top 5 of today. We are interested in hearing your top 10 of all times and your top 10 of the day. The first 5 people to leave their top 10 and their top 5 will receive a free t-shirt of the Second Wind Boxing Media t-shirt, specialized for that person, sent to your address, free shipping and handling. Leave the comments below so we can get those t-shirts sent to you. Also, the first 5 to subscribe to this platform will receive a free t-shirt from us as well. So you got 2 ways to receive a free t-shirt from us is if you give your list of your top 10 and your top 5 of today and your top 10 of all times, you will receive a t-shirt from us, free shipping and handling, as well as you being the first to like and subscribe to the channel. That's all our time this time, ladies and gentlemen. It's your boy Rashid Hammond and
it's your boy Caesar Fantastic.
Well, and peace and blessings to the Second Wind Boxing Media. Peace. He's on the ropes. He's spins off the ropes. He's moving around. Now he's getting a little bit of